picks? Is it about hypercarries? We don't know the answer, and we're waiting to find out.
Well, let's find out here as we get into the first champ select of this series. LGD on the left, there'll be our blue team for game one. World Elite over on the right, there our red team, Lee Sin and Rengar. The first two bans are for LGD, and Rek'Sai and Thresh, the next two for World Elite.
Interesting to see the Rengar ban coming out from LGD right here. It's one of those champions where if you get going, you can be really oppressive in the mid to late game right there. It gives a kind of semi-carry option to Spirit, so I can understand the ban coming out right there. Again, it just opens more and more questions to what is World Elite going to do this game.
Yeah, respect is Ninja's Xerath there as well, as that's the third ban for LGD. And World Elite going to consider their last ban as well. Got a lot of strong champions open still. Jarvan, Lissandra, and Janna, all the notable champions we've seen a lot of.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see Na coming through the bans and picks, but we might see him right here. It'll be interesting. It's been permanently banned so far tonight, importantly against someone like Kohler, who's shown excellent play on that Na, but also in the first series. And yeah, it's the Jarvan ban, so Na is available.
And I'm actually trying to think, Rumble available as well, another strong top laner we've seen lots of in the LPL. I don't know if we've ever seen Akon play a Na game yet.
I don't think he's had the opportunity to, at least it doesn't rise to mind. And of course, Akon is a name synonymous with Rumble, so they might be happy to leave Na up here. I believe he's taken Rumble into that Na matchup and just been able to out-rotate, but of course we skip on another very important meta pick. In fact, two of them flash on the screen right here. An embarrassment of riches available to first pick, but that also means some very strong picks available to World Elite to counter this Kassadin.
Yeah, and the first pick is that Kassadin, like you mentioned. Kassadin has maybe been the star of the LPL, at least last weekend, and hasn't made as much an impact, seen a lot more bans this week to start things off, and that's a great first pick for LGD.
He's been the star of the LPL multiple times over. Of course, the first wave of Kassadin towards Season 3 Worlds was all about, I believe it was Royal Club at the time, were really focusing, White especially was really focusing on that Kassadin pick. Whether it's top lane, whether it's mid lane, Kassadin always finds a way to come back into the meta, and it's specifically because with the power of this Janna, very hard to peel away this Kassadin, even with the Queen of Disengage.
Yeah, Lissandra has some of the similar properties, but a lot of people prefer Kassadin, it seems like, taking him in a bit more late game scaling, but those are good strong picks for World Elite as well. They'll take that Janna and the Lissandra as well.
Yeah, you saw the Riven Hover coming out from Spirit, just maybe a reference to the first week, maybe an indication of things to come. We don't know. We're going to wait for some more picks right here. We actually haven't seen a lot of Annie so far. The support Annie has fallen away in the first two series. Obviously, we won't draw too much from the hovers right here as Shaco. Chinese Shaco usually comes out at least once a split, so
it's a one-time deal. We'll see. I think you're right. I think we will see it at some point, but probably not today. We're going to give LGD a little more time to go through their picks and see what they want to go with as well. And LGD, again, looked really strong. Not picking Sivir too early, who's also open as well, by the way. And we'll see what they want to go for. This would be interesting. LGD are going to lock in Elise and Annie as their 2 and 3.
I mean, the Annie makes sense. We've seen a lot of support Annie. Of course, we've seen a bit of top Annie, which not quite the same flavor, but the Elise lock-in, of course, this is before any of the later Elise buffs. This is still patch 5. We don't have the base gates to reskin before when we're moving to 5.1 here. So Elise is still universally considered on the weaker side right here. Of course, still has the ability to have that long-range lockdown single target CC. She still has her power points. Early skirmishing quite well, but really falls away in terms of team fighting. So maybe they're just looking for their jungler Twen to put on some early pressure right here, and then relying on the likes of that late game Kassadin to really have the late game impact.
Yeah, the jungle pool's actually gotten shredded here, I noticed in the draft. That's the 5th total jungle pick or ban, with the first one for Xuen. And that looks like Pantheon jungle there over with Aurelia for World Elite.
Pantheon jungle was actually a really big thing in China last year, specifically towards the summer split. Insect especially leading the way on those Pantheon priority picks right there. Of course, after the base attack speed nerfs and some of the shifts in the meta, losing a bit of power, but still the amount of aggressive potential you can put on, of course, the semi-global of that ultimate, the Grand Skyfall, to gank a 2v2 lane. Pantheon's always going to be a discussion point in the LPL.
Yeah, and I think maybe showing a shift at Spirit wants to get a little bit more away from the carry junglers and be a bit more of an early ganker here. Imp was teasing me, by the way. But we do have very strong picks dropping late into this draft, though. Sivir and Na go 4th and 5th for LGD. That's ridiculous.
An embarrassment of riches. I mean, if you had taken those in the second round as your first 2 picks, you would have thought you basically won the draft there. So to have that at the end to complement the Kassadin, almost a complete top-tier team. You can question the Elise pick, but they probably have a plan for that champion. But a really strong lineup coming out from LGD. And I have to feel like the hypercarry is going to come. You have to feel like eventually ST-wise he's going to have that breakout performance to show why everyone hyped him up so much. His performance on LGD before he stepped away was so strong. and its signature champion was actually the Caitlyn, and it looks like it's going to be locked in here.
Yep, never mind.
No.
He tricked you. It's Jinx instead.
Wow.
But we talked about long-range hyper carriers. STYZ, no more Sivir for him, I don't think. I think he's done with that champion.
And we've actually seen quite a lot of success with Jinx against Sivir matchups here, just because Sivir doesn't really have the potential to really harass Jinx out of lane in terms of trades right here. Of course, she has the wave clear advantage, so if it is a true 2v2 lane, you'd have to probably hand it over to the Sivir Annie lane over that Jinx Janna lane. But in the lane swap especially, if you're able to get through that laning phase without too much pain, Jinx in the late game could prove a very strong power pick for STYZ and World Elite.
Yeah, and that's honestly what World Elite need. They need someone to get in there and carry. And STYZ, pretty good candidate to hard carry a game. He's on a good champion here in Jinx. But just looking back and taking a step back at the overall draft, one of, I think, the obvious criticisms to level at World Elite is poor drafting. And I think that is a very good example of what not to do in a draft.
I agree there. I mean, letting those power picks fall so late. I mean, just because you've locked in a Kassadin, obviously it doesn't pigeonhole it into being either a mid or a top lane Kassadin. So for that Gnar Sivir to be available so late in the draft, it has to be an oversight right here. And you see the Jinx pick, you know the damage potential that champion provides, but you have to deal with Elise jumping on top of you, Kassadin, and of course Akon's and Gnar. There's so many kind of CCs and gap closers available for this LGD team that I'm not really sure how Jinx is going to navigate these team fights without taking a whole lot of CC and pain.
Yeah, and World Elite just look a little lost almost in their comp. Anyway, we'll find out soon, guys. Let's get into the game. And we are on to the riff for our first game between LGD and World Elite. It's our third series of our first day in our third week of LPL. And boy, has the competition gotten real spicy here. LGD looking to continue a pretty strong performance so far on World Elite. They really want some points, Papa Smithy.
They do, but as you mentioned here, they have a bit of a mixed draft. They have a lot of dive in their top half of the map between Aurelia, Pantheon, and Lissandra. A lot of gap close, a lot of dive. But that's against a Sivir, who obviously has a lot of movement speed, and the spell sheet that's available. And you have to think, so when that Flash Tibber comes out, I'm not really sure how Jinx and Janna are going to be able to really have any semblance of a front line to be able to tank the damage required for Jinx to really get the teamfight DPS out. So I do worry for World Elite here, but they do have a snowball team. So there's maybe some potential that in the early to mid game, they can open up an unassailable lead.
Well, we'll have to see here. Both teams actually navigating very aggressively around each other's red buff. There's one deep ward there at the buff for World Elite, and looks like two wards actually for LGD, even using one to potentially spot out a lane swap coming through there as well towards the top side.
Yeah, both teams looking for lane swaps right here. I wonder if we're going to see the re-invade from World Elite here. It's not really necessary. They've basically guaranteed themselves enough vision to guarantee 2 buffs, so back away from that re-invade and just take what's easy.
Yeah, looks like they're going to break out into standard-ish lanes, at least for them. Wayless actually did want to poke his way mid there. Ninja might discover what's going on as well, but it seems like we're going to have a buff takeaway here and probably start vertically on the map for these two junglers by the looks of things.
Yeah, it looks like a lane swap's been initiated by LGD right here. It's very interesting to me just because in a 2v2 lane you have to really favor that Sivir Annie combo over the Jinx Janna. But I mean, I feel like Elise is such a strong skirmish champion that maybe these smaller number skirmishes will really appeal to the advantages of her kit. You know, that gap close and that sheer single target burst.
We've also seen a lot of supports do a lot of roaming early on as well. So maybe they'll just leave Imp to free farm for the first few minutes and Sivir maybe not the best champion to give the early free farm to, but they want to get aggressive. In fact, they're going already. Ninja in the mid does get stunned by PYL. There's a Nate Q there by Wayless. And easy kill there for Akon.
Sometimes you're a prophet there, Pastry Time. You talk about that support roam. What about the level 1 Annie support roam? Access to a 1.25 second stun at level 1 is a very powerful thing. And they pick up first blood off it.
Yep, so no landing here for Imp.al. They're just going to go in and have Annie maybe head up towards the top. No, could go bottom as well to fend off their push in. Akon continuing to jungle with Xuen as well. And STYZ, this is kind of what he wants here on this Jinx, so getting a little bit of free farm early on.
But significantly here, Akon doesn't lose anything with the jungle file it picks up. He actually picks up the kill, so of course we'll start to be able to work towards those tank items, maybe even an early snowball DPS item earlier, and then can teleport to lane at any point. So they lose nothing for a significant gold advantage in the early game.
Yeah, we'll have to see here as the farming has continued. Both carries on a good clip so far, 10 CS each. Although about Spirit and Aluka now looking down towards the LGD red buff. UJ will walk in here as well, and we're actually going to start this off. But again, 2 buffs already secured there for LGD. They just basically give each jungler their first 2 buffs.
It's so rare to see a 3-buff start with the meta as it is right now. It's so easy to guarantee vision over 2 buffs and pick them up. So very standard start, but of course the extra golden assist. Welcome if you're LGD.
Yeah, Lonks might cooldown, not hoping there either for 3 buff starts as Akon and Schwen are still teaming up. We're getting a bit more aggressive now and counter-jungling up towards the Raptor camp. Ninja returning back from his first blood. Will Ward it a little late to see the bad news. Luca and Spirit going to take out the Scuttle Crab as well. And we're going to isolate the mid lane and the AD carries very early on.
Yep, the mid lane, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of pressure on Wayless right here. So he's going to be able to get to level 6 quite easily on this Kassadin. He's actually 8 CS ahead. Makes sense, of course, because Ninja died. But anything that can relieve pressure from Wayless on this Kassadin definitely serves you well as this game develops.
POL is actually level 1 still. He's kind of hanging up in the bush there, maybe acting as a human ward here for him. That would be some very dedicated supporting here. Zim's actually going to try and freeze this back here as well. But POL are now going to go back, maybe looking for another kill. But he's not even soaking experience that much. Now hits level 2.
Kind of the main issue there for POL is it's not even an off lane for him to lane with the top laner in. He's basically just relegated to, as you say, a human ward, chilling out in the brush. Leech is level 2. Going to be some very squishy supports this game.
Yes, which is often what happens. We see a lot of roaming, which we've seen quite a bit of. World Elite maybe looking at a very swift dragon. They've got a pink ward down already. Spirit has a plan with the Pantheon, apparently. Going to go for a level 3, 5-minute dragon.
But it looks like LGD might have an idea of what's happening. Akon has a chain, but he's already surprisingly tanky.
Yeah, the only thing good. Luca now jumping on him as well. Does slow him down with the Equilibrium Strike. Schwenner answers with a Cocoon. STYZ around the side trying to slow them down, but World Elite will be throwing off that first dragon.
We see a re-engage from Spirit here.
Yeah, Spirit going in the exhaust, and the smite pop down there as well. PY out there with a good stun onto a Luca. Great tornado by UJ as well. And again, they'll clear out that pink ward, get some more vision back. But I think LGD are happy. They've denied that first very early dragon attempt.
Absolutely. World Elite have put so many resources into being able to take that dragon. You look up the top lane here. Imp's just chilling. He's free farming in the top lane, getting solo experience. It's been a recurring story of today, putting Sivir in a solo lane. And that sounds like a weird thing, right? Because you're like, but Sivir's a great laner, and she is a wonderful 2v2 laner. But having access to On the Hunt so early in the game, 6 minutes into the game, buffing up your whole team, the amount of utility it provides, getting her a fast 6, and then she just returns to lane with a pickaxe or BF sword, hit her laning power spike anyway. It's an interesting adaptation to what we would expect. We can't think about League of Legends as a narrow strategic game anymore. There's so many little adaptations that let you open up small leads in the early game.
Even regionally there as well. Pretty much all of last week was about how good the AD carries of China are, and they're getting a lot of love just in general in these games. Aluka, though, will return to the top lane. I guess he'll visit it for the first time. Level 2 to level 6. That is quite the experience deficit.
The only thing you can say for Luca is at least he has a bit of an item advantage with, an extra little bit 150 health from that Ruby Crystal. Imp's actually sitting on over 1,600 gold, so we'll have a BF sword whenever he chooses to back right here. Then I'd imagine standard lanes to come out, especially with the fact that the Chain Vest pickup is the big question mark from Akon here. I guess it pigeonholes him into a Sunfire cape, which I think it's actually been one of the consistent trends of a losing Gnar has been an early Sunfire cape just because that item statistics nowhere near Randuin's instead of teamfight effect. But if you can get it at 11, 12 minutes into the game, maybe it's relevant.
We'll have to see. Spirit actually spent a lot of time waiting for a potential dive or kill here by Imp. So he actually spent a significant chunk of his resources there just sitting in, maybe trying to get a 2v1 kill. And Schwen's actually up here now as well, on at least waiting for the counter gang. So both junglers being very patient, getting a lot of attention to the top lane.
Yeah, but it looks like nothing's come out of that. Of course, Imp not really hitting that hard without picking up the BF sword here just yet. Bit of action towards the red buff for World Elite though. Yeah,
this is bad news for World Elite. Wayless is in there, took out the pink ward instantly that World Elite were trying to use to defend their red buff, and basically forces Spirit off his own buff here. He's already having issues with experience trying to get that early dragon. He's going to continue to fall behind now.
Continue to fall behind, absolutely. But we do see Jinx free farming down the bottom lane here. What they've traded in all of this early game movement is a fairly free farm Jinx, which late game, of course, we all know how scary a proposition that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see it. We'll fight with Ninja there in the mid lane. And Kassadin continuing to get his CS as well. Catalyst done, actually, for Kassadin, so it seems like a Rod of Ages will be coming up pretty quickly here. And a Fiendish Codex up for Ninja as well, going towards everyone's favorite Morellonomicon.
And we have to note that the one roster change that's stuck on the World Elite side is they have committed to UJ so far as their support in the last few games. Conan's been sitting on the bench, of course, was their support for the I believe the complete 2014 run, and UJ just trying to make an impression in the bot lane.
Yeah, and again, we talk about players on the Water League that need to get going. STYZ is certainly one of them, and maybe the new support's an added incentive for STYZ to play a bit more aggressive, get a bit more going, and get himself up in these games, because he's starting to have some better games. We had a great Caitlyn game last weekend, I believe, but it's still not the player we expected coming in.
And bot lane is always a duo, so you have to talk about the personality meshes between the two. STYZ is known as a fairly fiery player, and he's had his checkered history, so it's a chance for him to start a new lane up with UJ, and maybe that's what they go for in the future.
Yeah, we'll have to see. BF swords completed for both ADs, by the way, so well and truly on the way. And just as you predicted, Papa, we've got standard lanes breaking back out here. So PYL's level 3 Annie to UJ's level 4 Jana, the support levels there.
And you pick up that BF sword and Sivir, you have so much instant wave clear. You can either hold the lane, you can push it in. You basically should have free reign of how you control this bot lane, and with such an experienced AD carry like Imp, they'll either push the bot lane if they want to invade, or hold it if they want to deny.
Yeah, with that first dragon coming up in maybe the next 5 minutes or so is a fairly common time. Good for LGD to swap those laners back down. And I like what they did with the early dragon, but really a strong map awareness by LGD to be like, hang on a second, let's go check this.
They've been grouped roaming for so long, Twen and Acorn. It just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I say that, and that probably discounts the fact that it's probably excellent pathing coming out of those two there. So they should be complemented. Because very rarely in League of Legends do you just happen upon an objective at just the right time.
Yeah, Schwen as well. Picked up an early Sightstone on his Elise to go along with his jungle item. Hasn't enchanted it yet. Will be on the way for whichever enchantment he'd liked. But really just, again, providing a lot of vision, a lot of utility, a lot of the things we expect from Elise as a jungler.
Yeah, Elise is all about her early game skirmishing and then just falling off in terms of damage. So to pick up that Sightstone, ensure that this is a very, very safe dragon. Of course, no Sightstone could be available for PYL so early after all the roaming. They have the vision, they take the buff, and they start the objective snowball.
Yeah, really strong from LGD. Actually, UJ could be in trouble. Oh no, does get popped. The stun will hit, but that's Cocoon actually going to move in there as well. So much damage from Boomerang Blade, and that's an easy kill for LGD's AD.
Yeah, but first, easy kill coming out right there. Of course, once On the Hunt was pumped, that was going to be a dead Jana. Level 4 Jana, very minimal sort of statistics there in terms of combat stats, and we just revert to standard laning.
Yep, Imp collects a bit of free mana there, blocking the cork by Jinx with that spell shield, so nice moves there from Imp. AD carry is fairly even in CS, but of course the kill will give Imp a bit of extra gold. Mid lane going well for Wayless's Kassadin, though. Didn't really feel that pressure after the early roam onto Ninja.
No, the early roam and just basically all the unorganized team play in the early game meant that Wayless was largely left to his own devices in the mid lane here. And against a lane bully like Lissandra being up 12 CS, he's actually just about 100 gold short of his Rod of Ages. He's going to have an excellent par time on that item. And then we've time and time again just seen the effective Kassadin in a team fight.
That was very elegant looking play there by Aluka, just stunning Acorn for a bit of harass. But again, going even there with Aurelia, perfectly fine. Looking to get a bit more mid-game power going and try and win World Elite some of these mid to late game team fights as well. But yeah, Ninja's falling behind a little bit. Not losing lane as we kind of expect from Ninja, but just not having a super stellar performance, especially after getting level 1 ganked by the Annie.
And that's kind of been the standard story of Ninja's career so far. This is, of course, his second split of the LPL and World Elite. He's never really the target of, the sole criticism is never that he gets smashed in lane and they lose the game. He just kind of farms, does his thing. That's why he defaults to champions like Xerath and Jace. Farms from long range. He plays his role, but in a team like World Elite who's losing, he kind of needs solos to make the plays for him, or he's just not a great fit for the team. Yeah,
Acorn actually getting aggressed on Aluka, doing some really nice job with the harass early on. PYL down the bottom, looks for the stun, finds it onto STYZ, but it is just a bit of harassment there as both bottom laners look to back off now and perhaps spend some more gold before Dragon. In fact, Imp already has his pickaxe.
And it seems like we could have a gank in the top lane.
Yeah, Spirit in the top, pops the ulti. Acorn almost at Mega Knight form, has to be a bit careful to World Elite. Never mind, Acorn just runs toward the safety of his pink ward, and World Elite do not overcommit.
Yeah, hopped away from safety right there, blows the long cooldown that is the Grand Skyfall right there, and returning to Wayless. 12 minutes was the par time for that Rod of Ages, so 22 minutes we start seeing the really big power jumps from this Kassadin.
Wayless will get spotted off by a ward here as well. Aluka and Spirit likely don't want to fight this 2v2. No, especially now that he's transforming would be a very potent skirmisher, so they will back off there. And LGD, again, just playing very calm, very comfortably. Feel confident in their AD carry, and with Wayless, his lane going as well as it is now, I can't really blame them.
And usually it'll be a problem to be sort of letting Jinx get largely free farm right here, but just with so many gap closes and CC abilities in teamfights, I think LGD are happy with this Sivir versus Jinx matchup going even or slightly to the advantage of Imp.
I do like the greed, though, coming out from STYZ. Early Avarice played there for him, kind of realizing that I do want my Infinity Edge, but the game's a little slower maybe, can afford to go a bit later, and he needs to as well. He's the big carry on this team.
He's absolutely the big carry. I mean, picking Jinx, you're committing to a very hard damage carry that does not have little to no mobility short of getting resets. So they're really looking for this first target burst, and they do have Lissandra to assist that, of course, Pantheon as well. So if they can get that first target, Jinx's potential in a team fight is limitless, but it's just looking difficult with just how the game's panned out so far.
Well, items are coming through now for World Elite. Morello Normicon finished there for Ninja, and 2 parts of the Trinity Force done for Aluka as well, with the Phage plus the Sheen. Over on the other side, looks like Akon is working on that Sunfire cape you mentioned with a Giant Spell to go along with his Chain Vest and Ninja Tabby. And Kindle Gem actually now for Elise as well. Xuen getting even more utility off of his Elise build.
I guess it's going to be a Snowball Sunfire cape. I don't really see the main function behind it. It's not like Shen, who desperately needs the wave clear. I mean, Akon in Mininar form doesn't have access to a lot of wave clear, but does have a ranged auto attack. And in Mega Nar form, his Q actually does wave clear surprisingly well. So it's just been a stylistic choice from a couple of the top laners in the LPL. It's had mixed success so far, but we'll try and monitor to see if it actually has a big impact in this game.
Yeah, Imp's Infinity Edge is done now as well. Dragon is back in 1:40, so LGD looking to get that Dragon Snowball going, retain their objective control. STYC in the bottom lane, though, will take out that bottom turret. The first one of the game actually going to World Elite, but PYL is around the side. The tip is stuns on the 2. They're going to move forward now. PYL does back up, but Schwen's down the bottom looking for a cocoon. He's trying to find it. Imp now around the side as well. Onto STYC, goes in with a great boomerang blade. Johnny goes down as well, and that's 2 easy kills for LGD.
Yeah, at that point, only thing STYZ could do was try to get a solo kill right there. He knew he was dead with all the cavalry coming down. It is still 1:15 to Dragon, so they haven't sacrificed an objective with that roam. But again, 4-0 is the kill score as we move into this game.
Scuttlecrab goes down as well for LGD, so they'll have good control over that Dragon as it comes back off. Looks like mid lane was a potential target here. They'll back off as well, and Spirit's actually down towards the bottom. Again, just hanging out. Actually went back to base. Nope. Looks like he did go into the lane. He definitely cut 1v1 Imp though, so just collecting a bit of the CS as it crashes into the turret.
On my monitor, we did actually see the Grand Skyfall coming down from Spirit right there, but of course, he had to quickly turn around when he realized he was against an Infinity Edge Imp here, right? No chance of being able to 1v1 Imp there.
Yeah, I mean, Warrior, pretty good on Pantheon as a jungle item in Chance Go, but definitely not enough to take on the Infinity Edge Imp already, who's had a very strong start to his game, 152 to 135 CS.
He's able to back with 1,000 gold, so of course will show up with boots too, and a bit more damage towards this next objective. The Dragon comes up in 20 seconds. Probably expect Akon to go back and pick up his Sunfire cape as well. It's one of those situations where they're hitting all their power spikes at just the correct time, like the practice Korean teams were famous for, and that's kind of the flavor we see from LGD. They're very similar to the top teams in the LCK at having really good rotations, especially when they're ahead and being on the ball for objectives.
Yeah, Whalers actually coming down to the bottom lane now, going to apply a little bit of pressure to this particular lane. The tower did go down in the bottom there as well, so 1 apiece there on that objective, but looks like Hassan actually just took a couple minions and then backed off. Maybe Imp was demanding CS, although he's now taking the CS in mid lane there, but looks like LGD just trying to get some more deep wards, make sure they have good coverage, and then take their second Dragon.
You'll see some damage trades coming to the advantage of Aluka in the top lane here, but Akon, of course, he's always got one eye on that teleport, one eye on that Dragon, because they are in the perfect pole position to pick up this second Dragon.
And LGD not quite confident enough to go in and start a 4v4 or 5v5 team fight yet, but they're actually moving in POL. Maybe they just want to get their push on now with the Sivir, actually.
What we should credit WE for, we're unsure how many chances we'll have to complement WE this series, but look at the defensive warding. It's excellent around the blue buff. They haven't been in a position to contest these 3 pink wards around Dragon that is really giving exclusive Dragon warding to LGD, but credit to WE. At least it's not a completely dark map. They're trying to really double down on what they do have control over, and they're just trying to slowly force their way towards contesting some of those big objectives.
Yeah, Xuen just casually soloing the Dragon in the meantime, though. It has it up to half health now. Looks like Imp will rotate down with PYL, and this Dragon is not long for this world. Smite is available as well, and that's a second clean Dragon pickup for LGD.
Yeah, I mean, World Elite, they have Jinx. They're looking to power up to the late game right here. Whether that's going to be probably the correct move to make against a Casson who already has a Morello Nomicon to supplement that Rod of Ages, which we previously said was going to be complete by 22 minutes. Buying time for a Cassidon against buying time for a Jinx is kind of a lose-lose, I think, for LGD. For World Elite, just because once that Cassidon gets big enough, It may have been nerfed, but he still has amazing burst.
Yeah, Aluka finished his Trinity Force, but a little late. Unfortunately, couldn't have it in time for that first Dragon Fight. Akon will transform in the top lane as well. Continue going on. Even CSG in the top lane. Aluka actually going to unleash with the ultimate, but Megadar not a good champion to try and go 1v1 against. He's very powerful.
I mean, there's still a big power spike coming onto Luka with the Trinity Force right here. Definitely a much more significant power spike than the Sunfire Cave that Acorn's completed. But as you can see up top, pretty just relaxed auto-attacking, but PYL, he's feeling it.
Yeah, he goes in, actually pops a tip as Akon. Now Mininoff, I'm going to go in as well. PYL going to follow through with a few more spells. Hyper will proc. There's another Q. The tower pretty low. Aluka actually going to dive back in. Pantheon is now on the top as well. PYL gets that first kill. Spirit now going to go in, but he takes so much damage from PYL's Annie. It's actually level 9 versus level 8. The rocket misses in the bottom. UJ in trouble. Is forced to flash out now as well, and PYL is coming in. He's got the stun in, flashes forward. He's got his ulti ticking as well. Spirit could be in trouble. The Q does land, and PYL picks up the kills.
At the same time in the bottom lane, Wayless was able to solo Ninja right there, which that's the start of something very, very bad if you're a WE fan.
Yeah, and LGD, again, just kind of going from strength to strength here. Everyone's powered up. They're getting the kills. They're securing the objective. Schwen in a bit of trouble. STYZ retaliating with that Infinity Edge Avarice play, but World Elite need to get a fight going soon.
Yeah, and it's very clear that Ninja cannot split push against this cast, and it's only going to get worse as he goes back and shops again. Probably going to pick up Boots too right here to complement his bevy of early game items. 22 minutes again is the completed Rod of Ages. It's going to be quite the scary Caston coming out at that point.
Teleport in for Akon in the mid lane, going to try and fend off STYZ and UJ. They're doing a good amount of damage. STYZ actually maybe going in for a bit of damage, but will chill out a little. Akon will clear them out. Tower gets low, but doesn't go down, and LGD retain control of the turrets.
Still don't really see the main purpose of this Sunfire Cave pickup, but obviously it does provide him with some interesting combat stats. Yeah, the rotations come through. There's no objectives to pick up at this point. LGD, they have 2 outer turrets. They're really going to try and just anchor Imp in the mid lane and try and AoE down this wave and pick up this last outer turret.
Have to see World Elite grouping up very aggressively in towards the mid lane. 4 members actually, as PYL could maybe find a few too many friends. Spirit going to dive in there. The Tornado comes through, and that's an easy first kill for Pantheon, but now Imp actually could be in trouble. There's a good Lissandra ultimate as well, and there's the double coming through for Spirit. The teleports come through as well, and World Elite look to push down mid.
Excellent play from World Elite. A good play calling. They saw the isolated mid lane, isolated AD carrying support in the mid lane. Picked up the 2 kills. They might even take a second objective here. Nope. That poke from Caston's sticking. That's
a very good cocoon by Schwen as well, but Wayless is trying to clear out the waves. Got to be a little bit careful going in. The turret getting low. Jinx is so good at taking out turrets, and World Elite pick up now 3 turrets to 2.
Yeah, in minigun form, once you have 5 points in that minigun, so much damage to structures, so much attack speed available just with the 1 BF sword item coming out from STYZ. That's a lot of mid lane vision they've opened up here. And whether they can translate that into aggressive wards and starting to compete with these objectives on the side of LGD, very nice rotation from World Elite.
And that is maybe the saving grace for World Elite here. Not only is STYZ on a strong carry that can really hammer them in the late game if he gets going, but if they start winning engagements, Jinx not just can actually snowball structures quite easily.
Absolutely. I mean, she's completely a snowball champion because she's so reliant on her passive to have an impact in team fights. You know, she has that low range in minigun form, so she usually has to rely on the rockets for the early kill. But once the first kill comes out, we all know Jinx's potential once she gets excited. So it's going to be whether they can break that tank front line, specifically whether they can kill Acorn and then move towards a slightly squishier backline of LGD.
They've got good engage as well with the Pantheon Lissandra if they want to maybe get a pick, but it's a bit tricky. Wayless here is going to dive in, but actually gets knocked up there. Lissandra comes in as well, and STYZ gets yet another kill.
And biting off more than he can chew, but here comes the Pantheon ultimate as well.
Yeah, Imp has popped his ulti. Spirit going down does walk away from the cocoon. PYL also ready with the stun, so World Elite will back off intelligently. Do not want to overcommit, but this is the type of thing this comp needs to do if they want to get themselves in this game and really try and challenge LGD.
Yeah, I mean, Wayless basically riftwalked as if he was going to do a Zhonya's bait there, but of course does not have that item completed and was instantly burst down. Maybe did not judge the situation correctly and understand there was Ninja also there for the trade kill, but I mean, if you're World Elite, you're going to accept those kills. That's actually the first kill for Jinx comes out there. She's already got her first 2 AD items, working towards perhaps the Last Whisper or the Vamp Scepter into Bloodthirster. World Elite, they're starting to scale up.
And again, we saw a little bit there. Maybe this is how that comp's supposed to work. It's pretty narrow. It does a very specific thing, but it does it quite well. And if that's how WordLit want to play, we mentioned it, they need to change something up here. Maybe this is what they want. 40 seconds now till that next dragon. UJ and Spirit going to clear out some vision.
We discussed the Elise pick and how it's basically to snowball the early game here. It's only 1,000 gold between the two teams right now, and we're starting to move on to the point in the game where Elise's damage is not really a relevant consideration, when she's only really there for her ability to put out those single target CCs in the cocoon. And while that can be very useful, obviously if she can get a cocoon onto STYZ, it might win a fight. In late game team fights especially, Elise just feels like more of a glorified aura bot if she's built maybe Aegis or finished those items. So they're going to start to struggle in the late games in terms of jungle pressure right here. And they have to be careful to really capitalize on this objective snowball they've started. This third dragon right here must contest for Water Late.
Yeah, we'll see they're moving into position to contest now as well. LGD have beaten them to the pit. They're going to clear out their own vision here. They've got the Scutter Crab down as well. Akon got to be a bit careful. Doesn't have too much rage yet by building it up very quickly with this. Now Spirit's actually going to jump in on top of him though. They're going to chase him down. He does transform into mana. That's a good Lissandra and they get that first kill. STYZ need to get started, but so much damage comes in over the top there as well. And STYZ is very low. They've got to kite back off here actually. It's only 1-1 though with Akon down, but Wailers just goes in, picks up the carry, and there's kills everywhere now. 2 for 2 right now with Ninja getting chased out. Make it 3 as Imp cleans out that last one. And LGD fire back.
And while it looked like a suicide mission from Wailers right there, if you're trading your life for Jinxes, you're doing it right if you're LGD. That one pick, getting down that low health Jinx, wins them any sort of team fight. And you know that we're going to see so many replete engages like that once the Zhonya's is completed as the third item over here for Wailers.
Yeah, you mentioned it before. That Zhonya's would make so much of a difference to Wailers, but he still did a ridiculous amount of damage with the AoE. WordLit, just kind of all stacked together, and that's all LGD needed to snowball that fight. They get their third dragon and their third tower.
They should never be stacking on top of STYZ. We see the replay. Akon is instantly exploded. They take out that frontliner, but look how much AoE damage they're taking. So they all have to make evasive maneuvers because it's a 200 HP STYZ. They probably thought it's all over, but look at this. The heal is activated and the flash force pulse for the instant explosion. And unfortunately, WordLead's comp, once that carries down, it really doesn't do too much. Imp has the Fleet of Foot passive. She gets the kill there. Does Sivir. And basically, when Jinx survives, when Jinx is able to fight at the back, it looks great for WordLead. But with all these gap closes coming out from LGD, how many team fights will we be able to say that?
And that's sort of the problem that you noted. WordLead need this Jinx to get going, and UJ's actually opted for an Aegis. That's not going to go in on one of the tanks, maybe earlier, or the jungler in this case, potentially for Spirit as well. And he really needs a Mikhail as well to keep this Jinx safe.
It is a very fast Aegis, but again, the Mikhails, like you point out, is probably the more important buy given the team comp that they're facing right here. Anything to keep that Jinx alive is so important, because once the Get Excited passive gets activated, she can get out of range. She can come back in with lifesteal, and lifesteal from 700, 800 range. It's that first kill, it's that first reset she needs to be afforded.
Now Dion actually going in. Akon, Talisman gets popped there by PWR. They're looking maybe for a re-engage. Good Tornado will knock up PWR. That will give WordLead a little more space now, but Cassid's up in towards the top lane. LGD are just pushing further forward.
And the Talisman of Ascension's actually been finished on PWR. We don't see this item completed very much at all. The coin start especially is not one of the favored starts in competitive play, but you can see the flavor, right? It's, I'm going to pop this, effectively old Shirelias, but in this case, AoE movement speed increase, and let's all go kill Jinx. Whoever gets her, you're getting the first beer later.
Yeah, and maybe even simpler, especially for a region that's prioritized Sivir. Mini Sivir ult there on the Ascension as well. So PYL, we talk about him, really strong, cerebral, strategic support player. Going to try and get his team in even further, especially when the on the hunt's down there. As well as Aluka collecting more farming. Hasn't had the impact we might expect on a champion like Aurelia, but just really doesn't have good targets here. Who's he going to jump on? Cassidon?
Yeah, it isn't easy with the target selection, but this has kind of been a consistent criticism against Aluka. Aluka, of course, is a person who does have an LPL win under his belt, of course, being part of the 2013 Summer Positive Energy lineup, but on this World Elite lineup, he's just really flattered to deceive. Again, he just doesn't make much of his advantages, and when he's ahead, when he's behind, he's very rarely managed to get back into games. So he had that Trinity Force at a very fast clip. Of course, it was a Trinity Force against a Sunfire Cape, and we're like, all right, that's a big power advantage. But what did he make of that advantage so far? I mean, minimal at best.
As we do see as well, STYZ maybe the big carry here for Elite, who, if anything can happen in this game to let them through, it'll definitely be that Jinx. Blast Whisper has been completed there as well, but World Elite struggling a little bit more on gold, about 4,000 gold behind here, and of course, crucially, those 3 dragons down as well. Yeah,
I mean, although she has the trifecta of damage items, I feel like this Jinx needs at least a Vamp Scepter. I mean, hopefully a Bloodthirster, but at least a Vamp Scepter, and even more importantly than that, she needs Flash Up. If she has those 2 things, the reset potential is there, but right now, she's going to get zerged down by this Kassadin.
Yeah, and even then, Kassadin's so strong that Jinx really needs to get to probably Bloodthirster and the Banshee's Veil. Those, the full 5-6 items built here. Is Imp actually going to pop his ulti? Spirit going to dive in. Ninja over the top is going to try and look up PYL. The ultimate comes to an Imp who's doing so much damage. That's a good zoning zone for Ninja as Akon will join the fray now as well. Yudo tries to knock him out with the Monsoon, but he's going to go down to Imp. But STYZ is getting the resets. Akon transform, goes in on top. Wayless just destroys STYZ, and that's 5 kills for 1 to LGD.
I was tracking STYZ that whole fight, and he was free hitting, but it didn't make any difference because the moment that the target selection changed on LGD, he was instantly exploded by Wayless. This is what we were talking about, the potential of that frontline Kassadin burst. He still has Zhonya's available. He didn't have to use it there. And LGD, they're going to go and pick up a Baron to supplement a very one-sided teamfight win. Doesn't feel like there's any way for World Elite back into this game. We see the replay right here. Spirit's in the front line. They've got 2 frontliners here, but they don't get the first kill crucially. So no get excited reset coming on for STYZ. He's in the back of the fight right here. But look at the team fight target selection of LGD. There's low health members on the LGD side. It doesn't matter. And the moment they change target towards that Jinx, she's dead.
Yeah, it couldn't have come at a better time with the Mega Knight transformation either for Akon. And I mentioned it, Jinx probably needs the full set of items to really be competitive. And you can see why. Wayless's Kassadin just rips through this hyper carry.
And that's realistically why we don't see a lot of Jinx. Is there any champion that needs such a collection of win conditions to really be able to be effective? It's such a risky pick and competitive. And there's been times we've seen Jinx action. Of course, Deft played an excellent Jinx against, I believe it was actually Siva in the EDG LGD series. But that was a totally different situation. For one, there definitely wasn't a Kassadin on the board.
Yeah, and Wayless is just ripping through people at 5-2-5 with 250 CS at almost 30 minutes here. I mean, to Ninja's credit, he's kept up well in CS, but again, Ninja is just Ninja. He's very consistent, very safe, but he can never seem to make it work for the team. And STYZ is the big man that everyone wants to see step up for World Elite, and this game, he's just been completely shut out by Kassadin.
Look, mechanically, both Aluka and Ninja are very competent players, but in terms of team fights, in terms of strategic play, in terms of results, not been helpful.
Now Luca actually going to dive in his spirits down the back as well. They're on top of him, but he gets blown up by the Kassadin. PYL getting ulted up as well. Now Luca is diving in so hard trying to get that kill, but he goes down to cast again here as STYZ going to get jumped on by Schwen. PYL around the back as well. STYZ actually gets 1 reset. Flashing out, he's trying to all-buck away from the Elise, but can't get away. And another 5-for-1 trade going in LGD's favor.
Yeah, Jinx is dying last in these fights, but it doesn't matter just because their front line is getting ripped through instantly. Whoever they focus fire is dying instantly. As we see, of course, here, the Baroned up Siege Minion not doing any tanking. They're going to have to rely on Akon.
I mean, looking here as we are going to have an inhibitor go down for LGD, we think about, the long term here. It's a big, long league is the LPL. World Elite still yet to pick up points, and it's not looking like they will here either. For me, though, it's just, I don't know. I've never seen something from World Elite that looks like, oh, that's exactly how they're going to win. Even STYZ this game having a hyper carry just doesn't look like everything's coming together quite yet.
And although it's kind of a horror word, I mean, the word potential has to come up here. It doesn't feel like the potential exists for Aluka and Ninja to carry a game. They can lane very competitively. They're not shown up in lane, but when it comes to team fight impact and in terms of map rotations, it doesn't feel like World Elite have any sort of realistic plans on how to win this game. They tried their first plan in week 1. That was the jungle split push, and to their credit, they actually took Snake to a very competitive 2-game loss. But since then, whether it's the Hyper Gary STYZ, whether it's Ninja trying out Zed in a previous series last week, nothing's worked for them. So whether they need to change their lineup, whether they need to really go back to the drawing board, it's not for me to say, but the World Elite we've seen so far, struggling.
Yeah, Akon actually pretty aggressively teleporting in. Does force Ninja out on that Lysandra in towards his own base. Akon will actually counter jungle the Wolves away from himself, building up some rage as well, which is nice. Imp now going to go in, gets the blue buff for himself as well. So going to have plenty of Boomerang Blades as they look for their next siege. And Dragon actually has not come back yet, I don't think. Still just the 3 for LGD, but just so far ahead already.
No,
well and truly.
They were able to instantly DPS down Dragon. They're sitting on 4 already. Another timer on the death clock for World Elite's chances in this fight right here. Man, it's just everything stacks up, unfortunately, for World Elite right here. They just don't have a shining hope. Every team needs something they can point to and say, well, if things went differently, this guy would have carried or something like that. And look, SDYZ's potential historically has been there to show, but the lineup that's been organized around him just isn't getting it together.
And that's maybe my question, is that, again, a long season, eventually World Elite's story will change somewhat. I'm curious to see when, because it's going to be a very different looking World Elite, whether it's this same lineup or some couple of changes here and there. When the wind changes for them, it'll change in a pretty dramatic way. But in this game, LGD, just looking like the LGD we've seen for the first 2 weeks.
I mean, a proud, massive organization. Oh my goodness, Akon's going in.
Just going into Nara. Oh, look, he gets stunned. SDYZ just gets destroyed by Cassidy and Nara. And it's a massacre here. World Elite running out under their own turrets. Ninja going to get chased down again. Another 5-for-1 team fight in favor of LGD. And that's probably our game one.
And Akon finally got the engage he was looking for. Exploded STYZ. Dies with his ultimate up. Nothing he could do on Jinx right there. And that'll be the game ending. And it's what we expected when we loaded into this game. It's what we expected on paper. A very one-sided win for LGD.
Yeah, LGD just still looking so strong. Take the first Nexus of their LPL weekend here. And World Elite, we were waiting to see what would happen. And unfortunately for them, it looks like a lot of what we've seen already.
And it's the inevitable march towards another 5th series loss for World Elite right here. Not a lot for them to grasp from that game. I felt like Spirits, Pantheon Ultimates were a little bit lackluster. None of the lanes, all the lanes were competitive without ever really managing to carve out an advantage. And it's another comfortable win for an LGD team who's now galloping towards 2nd place, at least for the length of this series. Because of course, with Snake's 1-1 split, if they win 2-0 in this series, they will leapfrog them at least till the completion of the last series today.
And that's probably a good thing to talk about. LGD, a very straightforward looking win for them as well. Just still looking, when they're ahead, like an unstoppable team. But they need the points. You know, World Elite's woes aside, and they are struggling at this point in the LPL. LGD will happily take the 3 points.
Yeah, and we don't even really need to go to a replay here. We have no replay really to discuss. Just really point out the key point for LGD here, just because it was a dismantling. They either went even or ahead in every lane. They won every team fight. It was just a consummate play from LGD. And World Elite, we said back to the drawing board, what, 8 times for them so far this season. Here comes the 9th.
Well, we'll see. They've got another game. We'll see if things can change here for World Elite. But LGD are just looking so good.